Great. So I'm going to get started. Welcome, everyone, wherever you are dialing in from. My name is Johanna Goss. I'm lecturer in Lens and Time-Based Art Histories at the Courtauld. And joining me is our head of admissions at the Courtauld, Alex Hawkins, who will be presenting a little bit later in our session and also very helpfully available for questions about the admissions process into the program of the Contemporary Art and the Moving Image MA, also known as CAMI. So I'll speak briefly around 15, 20 minutes. As I'm speaking, you're welcome to add questions into the chat of the webinar, and we'll try to address those after my presentation and Alex's presentation. So here we go. The MA in Contemporary Art and the Moving Image. I'm the course lead on the program at the Courtauld, Johanna Goss, and this is a program that's shared, as I'm sure you've learned, between the Courtauld and King's College London, specifically the Department of Film Studies at King's College. So this is a really innovative new program launching in 2025. And if you apply to be in this program, you would be in the initial cohort of this new MA program. So since I am a lecturer at the Courtauld and Alex is also at the Courtauld, we're going to be focusing today really on what the Courtauld is offering with this MA program and also how it fits into the broader slate of MA programs, postgraduate programs at the Courtauld. There's also opportunities for learning more about the King's College end of this program, but we can address any questions you have about that to the best of our ability. So this is really just an introductory session for those of you wanting to learn a bit more. To start, I want to just talk briefly about why the Courtauld, which also I think is a question of what and who is the Courtauld. Obviously, we're based in London. We have two locations. On the left here, you see Somerset House, and on the right, or maybe your left, I'm not sure, is Vernon Square, which is where most of our teaching is going to be focused for the next few years as our location at Somerset House is renovated. The Courtauld encompasses both an academic program as well as a gallery program. The academic program, which is where this MA is based, includes around 650 students total from the BA to the PhD level. We have 40 permanent faculty with a wide breadth of expertise and specialisms. We're based in the heart of London, and so we get to do a lot of object-based and site-based teaching, and CAMI will really benefit from our access to galleries, museums, theaters, cinemas, festivals, and so forth. You'll have access to both campuses, but you will be doing your coursework largely at Vernon Square. And you'll have access to all of the facilities at King's College also as an equally enrolled student at King's. Besides academic, and here we have a bit about the gallery program, our world-renowned gallery with a really incredible collection of largely Impressionist and Modernist painting. And while, as a moving image art specializing program, you won't be engaging so much with the Courtauld's collections. Because of our gallery program, we do have a really strong emphasis and expertise in curatorial practice, and you will benefit from that as a student in the CAMI program. I want to talk a bit about other types of things that go on at the Courtauld besides studying and the gallery. We have an incredible research forum, which hosts annually approximately 150 events per year, multiple nights per week. There are incredible visiting lecturers, symposia, any number of research-related events across the whole slate of periodizations and specialties in art history. There's a number of student societies. There's also opportunities to gain work experience. And there's student trips. For instance, Alex knows that we just took an MA cohort to the Venice Biennale. And students routinely in both from the BA up through the MA level, postgraduate level, go on subsidized student trips to see art in person. Here we have included an image of the AI Ada artist robot, who recently gave a talk in the research forum. Um, this, art making, one of the first art making robot, which speaks to, a growing emphasis in new media art at the Courtauld. I also want to just explain a bit how CAMI fits into the broader sort of postgraduate programs at the Courtauld. This is a new program, but it's not the only new program. It's a program that's emerging from our new strategic partnership with King's, which I'll speak about more in a bit, but it is going to be joined by a new MA in art and business. And whereas CAMI is really shared, it's a very kind of dual program between King's and the Courtauld. Our art and business MA is more kind of based at the Courtauld, and students will be taking modules at the King's Business School. CAMI is distinct in that it really is both cross-institutional and interdisciplinary, and I'll speak a bit more about that in a bit. But it fits into this broader list of programs you can see here. We have the largest postgraduate program, which is our MA in the History of Art, which features a whole range of special options that students can take from anywhere from medieval to Black futures, contemporary art in the African diaspora. We have an MA in curating. We have an MA in art history and the conservation of Buddhist heritage. And we also have a graduate diploma in the history of art. So CAMI is part of this sort of broader portfolio of postgraduate programs at the Courtauld. And what that means is that as a student in CAMI, you'll be studying alongside students in all of these programs and through some of the shared modules that you'll take. So I said I'd speak a bit more about the strategic partnership, which doesn't sound terribly sexy or exciting, but is actually a really amazing opportunity because it gives you sort of the best of both worlds. You get the highly concentrated, specialized, research driven environment of the Courtauld, sort of a world-leading center for a single discipline, the history of art, but then situated within this broader context of King's, which is a world-leading research university, also based in the heart of London, and lucky for us, with a world-leading film studies department with incredible faculty specializing in a whole range of topics, but with a particular strength and emphasis on artist's moving image. And that's where really this program emerges from, is this unique confluence of really concentrated expertise in King's College Film Studies on artist moving image with the Courtauld and our emphasis on contemporary art history. So one of the great benefits of this partnership, particularly for CAMI students, is that just like a lot of our students across the whole of the teaching program at the Courtauld, CAMI students will have access to King's facilities, clubs, any number of benefits, and also all of the administrative resources. But CAMI students in particular will be in those courses, those film studies courses, with King's students who are pursuing MAs in film studies, which I think is a really unique opportunity for more cross-disciplinary exchange. And so here I just want to round up and kind of summarize what makes CAMI unique and what makes it really exciting. And, I was really recruited to the Courtauld to lead this program, and the idea of being able to launch this really unique and innovative program was an enormous draw for me, and I hope you share in my enthusiasm. So when I say that CAMI is a unique MA program on artist moving image, it's not the only MA program on artist moving image out there. If you've done some research, you'll note that there are other programs that also focus on artist moving image, but what makes us unique is really the fact that we are both cross-disciplinary, working at the intersection of art history and film studies, as well as cross-institutional. That is really what makes CAMI a unique program. Students will be studying the intersection of contemporary art and the moving image, which encompasses not just, as we know, film, but also video and digital media, which is really, I think, for anybody paying attention, as I like to say, to contemporary art, is really the most important, dominant, and maybe I'm a bit biased, but leading field of practice in contemporary art today. Students will take a combination, a sort of a menu of core elective core and elective classes. So there's a number of courses that are required, and then there's a number of courses that are elective, and we can go into that a bit. That's explained in more depth and granular detail on the King's website for the program. And I want to talk now finally a bit about what CAMI really would prepare you to do, because I'm sure many of you are thinking about future employment possibilities. And this program can seem, at first glance, quite niche, contemporary art and the moving image. But I want to talk about all of the ways that it prepares you for a whole range of different career paths, some of which I list down here at the bottom. Here I've just pulled out our website, which you'll notice is a bit more limited. It's a bit kind of evocative, with our image of Anthony McCall here at the top, who's the type of artist we'll be exploring in this program, who has a major show up at Tate Modern right now, also a show at Ruth Magris Gallery, which I know Alex knows well. A leading contemporary artist working at this exact intersection. But there's less information on our page about the granular specifics of the program. So this is where I'll now turn to King's College their own page about CAMI, and I'll also ask if Shika can put the link to this in the chat so you can explore on your own. So here we'll now switch and go to the King's page. I hope everybody can see that. And so here at the top, we have a sort of nifty video we've made about the program, where you hear from me as well as the Director of Graduate Studies in the Film Studies Department at King's, Jeff Scheibel, talking about CAMI. But we also have a lot more specifics about the admissions process, which Alex will expand on in a moment. Something to note up front here is that admissions for CAMI is handled through King's. Okay, so you will be applying through King's College for this program. And whereas Alex is on the Courtauld end of admissions and can definitely provide support and advice on this, the application process is through King's, and this is the website you should be looking at to refer to that. So we have some benefits, some statistics, and of course, we love to have some rankings. But it's important here to note the entry requirements, which are standard entry requirements to postgraduate study. But I think for our purposes, I'd really like to emphasize the teaching and structure of the program, because I think this is possibly what many of your questions may relate to. Assessment for the program is going to be written work, which is relatively standard, some individual and group projects, some possibilities for audiovisual presentation, curating and exhibition making is a feature of the program, and then the dissertation. Something I want to just note right here, though, is that in filmmaking, curating, and other forms of audiovisual presentation, this program is a critical studies program. It is not a practice-based program. And so the program is not geared for students who are interested in predominantly focusing on developing their own creative practice. It is a study about it is a program related to the study of the critical study of contemporary art and the moving image. So that's just something to flag here. And then here we have our structure, which I think is important for you to understand. We have required modules shared between King's and the Courtauld. Moving image art histories and London film cultures are our two core modules that really anchor your year. You'll take moving image art histories in the fall term. I will be leading that course. London Film Cultures is a co-taught core module through King's, led by King's College Film Studies faculty, and those, as you can see, are worth 30 credits each. Critical debates and examining exhibitions will be taught in the critical debates in the fall and examining exhibitions in the spring. These are two required modules that are taken by MA students across the whole slate of programs, postgraduate programs at the Courtauld. So those are modules in which you will be interacting with other MA students at the Courtauld. And then there's the dissertation. In addition to these required modules, and you can see the starred modules are those offered by the Courtauld, there are optional elective modules, which are film studies department modules that are offered through King's. And you're required to take up to 30 credits from these optional modules, a list of which is provided here. Okay, so this gives you a sort of sense of what types of courses you could be taking as your electives in this MA. Okay, and so you'd be taking those alongside the MA students in film studies at King's. There's a lot more information on this website, and so that's why I've asked Shika to forward the link into the chat. There should also be some information posted soon about an upcoming virtual open day led through King's College Film Studies, where you can hear a bit more about details of the admissions process. So now I'll just wrap up my end of the presentation. Just one moment. And talk a bit more about the question of careers and life after the Courtauld. Now, these are transferable skills that any student who's enrolled in the MA History of Art or CAMI at the Courtauld would be learning and practicing through our program. And these are transferable skills that can lead to a whole range of employment opportunities after graduation. The ability to write and present your ideas, your original ideas, in formal written text, but also in oral presentations. Something I'd add to this list, which involves, research, oral presentation skills, is also the ability to create compelling public programming, which encompasses curation, but also film programming. This is something you can practice, particularly in the examining exhibitions module taken in the spring. A really key part of this as well, I think, is working in teams, working in groups and collaboration. And one of the added benefits of CAMI is that your collaboration will often take place not just with groups, but also in interdisciplinary contexts. So developing the ability to talk cross-discipline with students who are pursuing degrees in adjacent or, related fields, but who are not specifically in your program. Which allows you to really test and refine the way you express your ideas and think about the histories that you're exploring. Here's just a range of sort of types of employment that graduates of the Courtauld engage in. And I think adding to this, students in CAMI will be highly well prepared to undertake employment in film programming, or critical writing about moving image art and working in a range of cultural sector fields because of the fact that CAMI has such a strong emphasis on exhibitions, curation, and public programming. So I think it's a really ideal degree program to pursue if those are the types of fields you see yourself wanting to work in. And here's just some notes on our career services at the Courtauld, the types of support we offer, and the mentoring and the practice that we can offer to students in trying to obtain employment after graduation. And finally, I want to talk a little bit about alumni benefits. As an alumni of the Courtauld, you'll be joining the ranks of thousands of a global group of people who've graduated from the Courtauld and gone on to work at some of the highest levels of the art and cultural sector. You'll have access to alumni benefits, networking opportunities, employment opportunities through online jobs boards, and career support after graduation. Also, just noting all alumni of postgraduate programs get 10% discount on further study of degree programs at the Courtauld. Okay, and I think that's the end of my piece. I'll hand things over to Alex. And Alex, just give me a little nod when I should progress your slides forward. So here is Alex Hawkins, Head of Admissions at the Courtauld.
Thank you very much. So yes, we've heard about why you might be interested in studying this great program. I'll talk to you about some of the practicalities. As we said, the kind of primary processing of the application and kind of where you'll be submitting that will be through KCL, but I'll provide a bit of guidance on some of the timeframes and certainly a little bit of advice from our side, as well as just note about some of the accommodation that we offer and some of the funding that might be available too. So if we go to my first slide, the applications opened some weeks ago for 2025 entry. The deadline to apply for the program on the KCL side is on the 9th of March 2025. I will just note that we would ask that you apply by the 20th of January if you wish to be considered for the Courtauld MA scholarship. And I'll speak a little bit more about that shortly, but just to say that there's a kind of, say, earlier deadline to apply for if you have that in mind, and that's an important thing for your consideration. The entry requirements we touched upon earlier, it's normally a 2-1 in your primary study before coming to the Courtauld. We often at the Courtauld look at kind of having a degree of flexibility in terms of other forms of academic and relevant professional experience, and I'm sure that the KCL process also allows for that too. And the overseas kind of equivalencies for that. We list the US one here, but my team are always able to provide a bit more information on those kind of equivalencies if you're applying from outside of the UK. I've just lifted a few of the kind of key points from the KCL application here, just to flag them. They ask for a personal statement, of course. They have a maximum 4,000 word character limit there. It's either in a text box or a submitted document. And it's just the kind of classic things around why you want to undertake the course that you're hoping to do afterwards. When I advise kind of personal statement writing, I always think it's useful to not just list everything that you have done. You'll see at the bottom here that a CV can be uploaded too, which can really give you that granular detail of your background and any experience you have. For the personal statement, it's good to kind of pick one or two things that are really relevant, that are strong, and kind of give a bit more emphasis to those, be it academic or professional experience. And also, we don't expect for you to know what you want to do in a year or more's time. That's hard to do sometimes, and sometimes that's the whole point of the program itself. But if you have a sense of where it fits into your aspirations, it can be quite a strong narrative. And so do consider that if you've got some thoughts about that at this early stage. You'll supply a copy of your official academic transcripts showing the subjects that you studied, the marks that you attained. If you've been out of education for some time, there's usually ways of being more flexible if it's just a certificate rather than the full transcript. Sometimes it gets more and more difficult to provide that kind of full sense of information if it goes back 10 plus years. So there's usually a degree of flexibility there too. KCL asks for one academic reference. A professional reference can be accepted if you've completed qualifications over a number of years ago. And often there'll be a kind of a case where you might think a professional reference might be able to attest to some more relevant kind of skills and things that can really be transferable into the program. So there's sometimes a balance there, and something for you to kind of think about who's best available to attest to the skills and kind of learning that you have that it will benefit your application to the program. There's also a piece of written work, approximately 2,000 words on a relevant topic. For our own guidance with written work samples, we often say that that can be an excerpt, a piece of a longer piece of writing. You can contextualize that. So if it's maybe a chapter from your dissertation or undergraduate, maybe just to contextualize that, it really helps us know where it's coming from. So that's a useful piece of advice. Otherwise, it can kind of come, we're trying to figure out what is it that I'm reading here. So that little bit of context is a really useful tip. It just helps us get into the mindset of what we're really looking at when you submit that piece of written work. If we go to the next slide. I can touch upon kind of scholarships and funding. So we have our own MA scholarship. There'll be a limited number of those that are at £15,200. The criteria for that is on the website, on our website, on the scholarships section there. And predominantly we'll be looking at kind of criteria around our widened participation kind of a plan going forward. So you might be looking at household income, or if you're applying from overseas, coming from a country that is a developing country, and the kind of the full list of those kind of criteria and how those are defined. That's all available on our website. Just to flag again that earlier deadline to be considered for that of the 20th of January. It's really key in your considerations there. The programme should also be available for and eligible for a UK government master's loan, and more information about that would be on the UK government website. You'll be able to access accommodation through King's College London itself. We do also have our own accommodation that you'll be eligible for as a postgraduate student. We have our own halls of residence Duchy House, which is situated right on Waterloo Bridge, really close to the Somerset House and kind of Strand campuses there. And there's a range of rooms there from slightly more affordable shared bathroom rooms through to slightly more spacious ensuite accommodation. We also have access to University of London intercollegiate halls, which are mostly based in Bloomsbury. Now you'd be sharing with a number of students from a variety of different institutions throughout London. And we say here that this is mainly for international students who've not studied in the UK previously. But if you're situated, far from London in the southeast and you're a home student, don't be put off from applying. And often there are many home students who are kind of based further away from London in the southeast who are able to secure accommodation for ourselves. They're all the kind of practical bits of advice that I have in terms of how to get that application in. And as I say, a lot of that and kind of some of that formal guidance, if you have any specific questions about the actual application form, etc. My colleagues at King's College London will really be the best port of call for some of those. But my team are always available to help and guide and advise. And the email address there, the pgadmissions@courtauld.ac.uk address is really the place for that. Other ways of staying in touch with us are listed on this page too. And so that's everything from my side.
Great.
If you have any questions, please do put them in the Q&A section that you'll have on the webinar there. And there's no questions yet, so we'll just wait a moment or two for those to come in. Is there anything that you want to kind of bring up or touch upon before we start answering the questions as they come in?
Thanks so much, Alex. I mean, I think I just want to really emphasize and reiterate Alex's point about earlier admissions to be eligible for Courtauld internal scholarships. Okay, that's going to be an important thing to note. It's something that is just somewhat of an unavoidable, some sort of issue of deadlines between these two institutions. And so if you have any questions about that, be in touch. But really, we do really strongly encourage those of you interested in applying for that scholarship to please get your applications in by January 20th.
Absolutely, yeah. And if the actual application form itself isn't available yet, that will be kind of fully formed and available in the coming weeks. But if you want to register your interest or just kind of ask for a bit more information as it's available, if you send us an email at the PG admissions address, we'll keep you informed.
We have some questions that have come in, and I think I'll handle the first, and maybe Alex can tackle the second. Is an academic of professional film cinema related experience required preferable? Is an academic of professional? Maybe you could clarify that question. Is this asking about an academic background, or is this about a reference? I'm not exactly sure I understand the question, but if it is about the question of professional film making experience, that is absolutely not required or preferable for the program. Again, I want to emphasize that the program is critical studies of contemporary art and the moving image, and no hands-on experience required or preferable in terms of that background. Alex, do you want to maybe tackle the second on the application materials about the essay?
Yeah, so there's a question around what kind of things you can submit to kind of fulfill the written work sample, and the example given is a script excerpt. I think that my instinct would be that might not necessarily be appropriate. I think what we're really and not to presuppose what our colleagues at KCL would say as well, but I think really the typical need is to show us your academic writing skills, and it really needs to take the form of a piece of academic writing. Now, this is where there's a 2,000 word limit there, so it's a reasonably short piece too, which means that it could be there's a bit more focus to it. Um, Not to, there might be people who are also considering applying to our other postgraduate programs. We have a slightly longer written work requirement for our applications, and that sometimes allows people to maybe submit two pieces of work. And that, in that case, it could have been, I could see that might be where that would have worked. I think in the case where it's 2,000 words, I think there's a degree of focus that's required there, and because of that, I think it being a written kind of academic piece of writing, I think is kind of key for what we're looking for there.
Yeah, I want to reiterate that screenwriting is not one of the topics that will be explored in this MA. So providing a screenwriting writing sample would not be applicable to the type of study that we're going to be undertaking. Okay. So that's a good question. And thank you for that, Alex. I'm going to kind of answer questions 3 and 5 in together. And I'm really glad that you're asking this because this gets into the nitty gritty and the heart of what makes this program unique and also the content of this program. The program is equally split between art history and film studies. That is what makes this program unique. Your electives and your required modules are equally split across the history of art and the study of curation and film studies. And the histories of moving image art that I'll be offering as your core module in the fall is going to be an interdisciplinary study of the history of moving image art that is going to be really bringing together approaches from both film and media studies and contemporary art history. Okay. And so when you note that you're interested in media studies and media studies scholarship will certainly play a role and will potentially be, assigned reading and will be engaging with some discourses in media studies. But one thing I would distinguish here, for instance, I think other types of media game studies. I see. Yeah, exactly. So what I would say there is that games and video games are absolutely a kind of prevalent field of practice within contemporary art. So if video games are under discussion, I believe they will be, in particularly my course, but they'll be approached through an art historical lens, which is to say, we will be looking not at mainstream gaming, but rather artists who make games and artistic approaches to video games. I hope that's clarifying. I know that these boundaries are porous, deliberately so, because we're actually studying a field of practice that is deeply experimental, but we will not be reading media studies or engaging with media studies approaches to mainstream commercial gaming, but rather to artists who are taking up the medium and the genre of the video game to explore that and to experiment with that. Okay. Marie Michelle's question about a few examples of films and film artists that we'll be studying. What I will say is that within the context of the Moving Image Art Histories course, experimental cinema will definitely be prioritized, but within the film modules, the elective film modules that you can take at King's in the film studies program, there are opportunities to talk about more narrative filmmaking. So whereas in the Courtauld electives and the Courtauld histories course that the core module you'll be taking, we'll be focusing largely on experimental media practices, whether that be video art, underground cinema, and new media art today. For narrative filmmaking and narrative cinemas, particularly national narrative cinemas, there will be opportunities for you to study that in the film studies modules that you can elect to take. And now I'm looking at the most recent question, and I would say there's actually more than two special options dedicated to contemporary art because we do have a really quite remarkable concentration of specialists in contemporary art at the Courtauld. And that's one of the great benefits of CAMI is that even though you're not taking contemporary art modules offered by some of those other faculty, you will be studying in tandem with a lot of postgraduate students who are working on contemporary art through those required modules on examining exhibitions and critical approaches and so forth. So there's more than two that focus on contemporary art. Um, does the program intersect other media with the moving image? Is it dedicated to general contemporary art as well? This program is really quite not narrowly, but I would say generatively focused on moving image art. And by other media, we will be thinking about lens and time-based media, so photography, video, and new media art practices. Um, and potentially the ways that the moving image intersects with performance, with dance, with music, and other time-based media. But generally speaking, um, the program will not be focusing on object-based forms of contemporary art practice. That is, also though, these fields can be porous. For instance, I anticipate we'll be paying attention to and discussing um, phenomena such as post-internet art, in which post-internet artists are often artists working with and on and through the internet, but they're often involved in the production of objects in tandem with moving image artworks. So this program is not interested in policing the boundaries of what qualifies as moving image art and reducing that to narrowly, analog cinematic experiments of the 1950s and 60s. We are, again, cross-disciplinary. Um, I'm a scholar of experimental moving image art, but I'm also a scholar of contemporary art more broadly, who's interested in a whole range of time-based practices that involve performance and often involve objects and networks of people. So there will be moments of cross-contamination and exchange, but I would say what is special about this course is that we are focusing on the history of where art has intersected with the moving image. And that is why we are collaborating with film studies at King's and really taking advantage of their strong concentration in artist moving image studies. Let's see, there's another follow-up, game studies. I consider part of my, oh, I see. So you did a dissertation in media studies. My project is like specific games, existing work. Mm-hmm. I think that sounds apropos, honestly. That dissertation, a media studies dissertation that's thinking about the intersection of game studies with contemporary art, does sound apropos. What about you, Alex? What do you think as a writing sample? Does that sound eligible?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, certainly in the context of a written work sample, that would be absolutely acceptable. Yeah.
Just going back to the sixth question, I think the distinction then between CAMI and some of the special options that are thematic, for instance, Black Futures or Art and Ecologies of the Americas, is that those are special options that are thinking through certain thematic or geographic lenses, or potentially in Black Futures, thinking through the lens of identity and embodied experience and critical race studies. You know, our program, CAMI, is thinking in terms of um, sort of techniques and styles and, yes, mediums, but not, again, in a sort of policing, closed off, narrow way. We are thinking about these things in an expanded way. But we are going to be not just cross-disciplinary, but also thinking about the moving image in a variety of geographic contexts across a kind of broader historical scope. So we're going to be thinking about the 20th and 21st centuries, not exclusively the post-war period. The focus is on contemporary art in the moving image, but when we're looking at the histories of the moving image, we are, of course, going to be thinking back a little bit further into the ways that the moving image has intersected with art and art history through the 20th and 21st centuries. So um, it's it's a bit distinct from the ways that some of the other special options approach the topic. in part because we are really dedicated to this cross-disciplinary approach. Hope that's helpful. I'm also really open to discussing further. If any of you want to send me a follow-up over email, I'm going to put my email address in the chat, if I can. This would go to, oh, this is going to the host and panelists. Maybe perhaps I could ask Shika to share my email then, because can you do that? Thanks. It's johanna.goss@courtauld.ac.uk. And I'm open to discussing more. And I just want to also emphasize that this is the launch year for the program. And so this is a program that we have a lot of enthusiasm around. Um, but it's also going to be a program where the students that come into that program are going to be shaping how that program looks the first year. So I have, my curriculum and my ambitions for the program. And it's also a program, though, that through the electives that you choose to take, you'll be able to pursue some of your own interests and your own kinds of ways of approaching the topic. Thanks, Shika. Any other questions?
Maybe whilst we wait for a question or two to come in, I'll just maybe, as people might be interested in applying to other programs, or just, as we say, this program kind of sits alongside our other range of postgraduate programs. So that 20th of January deadline for getting your funding in is the application deadline for many of our own internal programs. There's some variations in the dates, one earlier, one later, but that kind of 20th of January date is kind of relevant for many of those. If you go onto our website and the kind of applying for postgraduate study section, it will go into a whole range of detail about our own application process and form. But just to flag that if you're interested in applying directly to our other postgraduate programs, that's kind of the relevant date, and the same email address, the pgadmissions@courtauld.ac.uk address, is how you can ask any direct questions. There's also similar sessions for some of those other programs that will be available on the website too. So if you have kind of any interest in those, then you can watch those and watch myself and other colleagues cover some of those too.
Great. And while, of course, I want all of you to apply to CAMI, I think everybody who's attending today, I really would love to just emphasize that I think this is such an exciting and unique program. I'm also available to talk through or exchange over email whether you think it's the right program for you, because as Alex points out, we do have a whole range of special options dedicated to contemporary art. But I do think that our program is offering something really unique that has some unique benefits, particularly for those of you that are working or have worked or have studied at this particular intersection. I can just say from experience, I'm somebody who pursued graduate study in history of art and really had to kind of piece together my own training, interdisciplinary training, through taking coursework in different departments, assembling, in the US, we have a multi-person dissertation committee, and bringing together scholars from different fields. And of course, also just reading very widely across these different fields and kind of doing some of this work myself. And if I had had the possibility of being able to take this MA as a student, I think it would have been hugely beneficial in helping me hit the ground running and not have to kind of piece together an interdisciplinary, cross-disciplinary training at a moment when it was less common. I think this field of study of artist moving image as an academic field of study, as a critical field of study, is something that has really exploded over the last 10 to 15 years. And you can see that in the sort of scholarship. You can see that also particularly in exhibitions. Having just been to Venice, this was one of the, I would say, the least moving image saturated Venice Biennales I've been to, but historically, the moving image and film, video, and new media is so prevalent as to be almost unnoticed because it is so prevalent everywhere. And yet it does actually call upon us to have a sort of specific set of skills and tools in terms of evaluating and historicizing and contextualizing it. And that's what CAMI has been developed to really provide. I don't see any more questions, but again, I really encourage you to follow up with both me and Alex afterwards, for anything we might have missed, or just if you want to hash out whether you think this is the right program for you. But as Alex notes, you can also apply to both programs. Of just noting though that the applications for CAMI are submitted through King's, which is very important to remind you of. Okay. I'm going to stop share on my screen and just thank you all so much for attending and for asking really great, specific questions. And just really grateful for you all being here and present today. So hope to hear from you and hope to read your applications. Thanks so much.